Let's rock anything, man. I'm RunnerGuitar.
I'm Alex.
I'm Miranda.
And welcome once again to Runner's Impressions. This time we have a big one. Yeah. So just today was the release of Ace Attorney, the anime, adaptation of what is apparently it appears to be an adaptation by Studio A1, the same studio behind the Fate Grand Order openings and the Fate in Sword Art Online, the anime and movie, for the first game of Ace Attorney. Today's episode was focusing specifically on episode 1, which was, as a lot of people know, the one surrounding Larry Butts and the douchebag with the toupee. Now this anime,
Dear God, it's awful.
that it is. Now Alex and I are huge fans of the Ace Attorney series. Like any news that are out there, we get hyped immediately.
I have every game,
So do I.
and I have ships for certain characters that I'm not going to state here because
Dark and obvious.
yes, if I start talking, I won't stop.
And Miranda Hugh is a newbie to the series, and this is our first impression to the series. So
It was a horrible first impression to the series.
okay, let's start with the first part. For me, my first impression came from the animation itself. Now, I'll admit, I have extremely high standards for anime animation nowadays, thanks to Ufotable, previous work by Studio A1, White Fox for Steins Gate, and other studios of the sort. But Miranda said it while we were watching the show.
Well, I mean, I am an outsider since I haven't played the game, but just by watching the opening, I feel like it's very below standard. I mean, even hentai anime is much prettier than that. The drawing style is just really awful and old-fashioned.
Well, the worst part is that it wasn't consistent. Like, there would be some parts that would be okay or decent, or like sometimes they were actually kind of pretty. Like in terms of like the city scenes, those were actually not too bad. Or they'd have like certain shots where they'd get it right, but then the rest of it would look horrible, and you'd just be sitting there saying, just pick one and stick with it.
Let me put it into perspective, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm gonna search it real quick, since on my phone while I explain. So nowadays we have a standard for animation that is rather high. We have shows that people are constantly like, why would bother talking about the animation because it's usually pretty good. But when I saw the opening for this anime this morning online, I was immediately disappointed. First of all, the song that they had, most generic as possible, definitely extremely generic. The animation itself, extremely choppy except for the spinny scene, which by the way, that was extremely lazy. That opening was as lazy as you could get. Now, the animation itself, though the colors are a bit vibrant, they are not enough, and the animation itself is worse than the animation in 11 Eyes, an anime that I hate and was released in 2009.
Well, here's what I have to say about the opening for me. He's right about the cycling animation and all that other stuff. I personally didn't mind the cycling animation, and as for the music, yeah, it was generic, but I didn't mind it so much. But yeah, the running cycles were horrible.
Yeah, but even if you don't mind the song that much, the fan opening that I showed you a few months ago, when we first met actually,
Yeah.
the one, I forget the name of the
Oh
dude.
yeah, that's better, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
but that's,
we
yeah.
could like that rock punk version of Turnabout Sisters would have worked so much better than this.
Yes, it would, and it would have been free too.
Well, even that, but my point is, you could have done something similar to that, even if you didn't want to use that song. Like, for example, One Punch Man, they already had a fan theme song, which was One Punch Forever, and even then they got Project Jam to do Hero, the Lone Hero, and even then, both songs, One Punch Forever and Lone Hero, were amazing songs. One Punch Man, which is as silly as it is, was so much better animation than this. And not only that, like animation-wise, CGI.
It's just filled up rookie mistakes. It's like,
Rookie mistakes and lack of middle animations. It's just keyframes, and even then, not even pretty keyframes.
Osomatsu-san looks better than this.
The worst part is that I have to agree.
yeah, it feels like they're really low on budget on that show.
Which shouldn't be the case because, you know, Phoenix Wright is a really, really popular game in Japan and here, so it's like that doesn't make any sense.
Like here it's
whatsoever.
currently cult status, but even then the cult itself, for lack of a better term, is growing.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's like, it doesn't make sense.
Now,
Moving on, because we could go on about the animation.
yeah, let me just bring up one final thing. That CGI for the courtroom first appearance, that was fucking out of the Nintendo 64. That was pre-rendered Resident Evil 1. We have CGI nowadays, even for anime that's better than that. Just look at UFO Table, and even then, Studio 01, the same fucking studio that did this show, and you'll see great implementation of CGI into 2D animation. So there was no excuse.
The games had better CGI than this.
Like, I wish it would have used Studio Bones. Like, I don't know what's currently the state of budget for Studio Bones, but when you show me the animation, when I see the animations in Dual Destinies, and for the few cutscenes that I've seen of Ace Attorney 6, I would have preferred that over this. Like, even
okay. The original game, which came out in 2000 on the Game Boy Advance, was better quality than the drawings in this show.
Definitely.
And let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. So with that said, let's talk about the story, or shall we say the lack thereof.
Well, no, they did follow... Okay, here's the thing. They followed the plot of the very first case in the first turnabout, which they basically kept true to the original story, but with several things that they took out, which honestly completely pissed me off.
It was rushed. This entire episode was rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were so many moments that Alex and I just stopped just to complain either about the animation or about the story itself. Fans of Ace Attorney will know the scene relating to Nick's childhood, along with Barry and a certain other character that likes to wear red a lot. And that scene...
It's not red, it's magenta.
Magenta, wine color, whatever. It's that we know that scene is in the fourth case, and it is crucial to that fourth case, but for some reason it was added in this case, and even then I don't feel it added anything.
It didn't. There was no reason to put it there. I mean, here's the thing. The point, okay. So there are several key things that they failed to do with this first case. The first thing that they failed to do is they failed to get us interested in the characters, because that's what they did in the game. Was the purpose of the first case of every single game was to get you into the groove of it, get you used to the controls, which obviously this is an anime, they don't have to do that, but they've got you focused on the characters, got you focused on like what the overarching story of the entire game was going to be, and basically got you into the Ace Attorney spirit. It was like baby steps into a giant...
Ace Attorney 101.
Exactly. That is how you're supposed to play an Ace Attorney game, is you have a case that is a little low-key and a little more logical.
No, any story should start off by getting you introduced and having you interested in these characters. If you start off making a bad first impression, you have very low chances of sticking with somebody sticking with you. Which unfortunately, according to what I've seen online, people seem to be liking this.
I don't understand, but whatever.
So far I've only seen one person that dislikes it along with us. Now, this skipped a lot of... These characters felt like there was a lot of them taken away. Nick did not feel... you know what?
Feel like Nick.
Exactly. First of all, he didn't feel like Nick. He felt like a generic shonen protagonist that happens to be a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't any... there were only two Nick sass. Nick is filled with mental sass, and there were only two lines that included that.
Oh, one other thing. Sorry to kind of move away from that, but here's my biggest problem with Nick, because you know what, Nick is a complex character. I can see how people have trouble reproducing him or showing him off to other people, all this stuff. But you're right. A, he needs to have like a shit ton of sass.
Mm-hmm. At least the mental sass, because he's still a rookie at this point.
Yes, but B, which I honestly personally think is like the bigger issue, because you know I can obviously these people didn't necessarily know how to handle an Ace Attorney thing, so I can kind of forgive them a little bit for messing up Nick. But my biggest issue with what they did with this entire show is they did not have a turnabout, because that is always how Ace Attorney works. It's like everything seems hopeless right until the last second. Sometimes you get a little bit more than that, but most of the time everything comes down to the wire in terms of like whether or not the person that you are defending is going to be found innocent or guilty. And there was none of that tension. I felt none of that. They basically made it so Nick was winning, like...
From the very beginning.
Exactly. There was only 2 minutes where it seemed like he was actually losing, and then he brought up the facts, and then that was it.
In Ace Attorney, the breakdowns are something you build up toward. But we already had the breakdown almost immediately. Like, it was super quick. The breakdown of the character of the villain was quick. And yes, even though in the first case, in every game, you usually know who the villain is, even then, there is a build-up to it. There is tension. Now, I will say this, as I mentioned to Alex and Miranda, a good adaptation, first of all, should stand up on its own without me having to need the knowledge from the previous games. Secondly, even if I know it, it needs to keep me in tension. It needs to keep me interested. For example,
should be like you're hearing the story for the very first fucking time.
Yeah, like for example, I researched the fuck out of JoJo before I watched it, so I already knew about Dio, Jotaro, the stands, and even then, I was enthralled. I was sitting there screaming ora ora and being hyped with it. With this case, I should have been hyped. I should have been screaming objection along with Nick, and I felt no tension. There was no tension. Whether it was because the animation, the characters themselves, and the music. Can we talk about how lazy the music felt in this anime? I barely heard anything. I was able to recognize the objection theme and the cross-examination theme, but there was the Pursuit Cornered, what is considered to be the theme of Nick, never played, ever.
It doesn't have the right atmosphere.
Exactly. It had a very weak atmosphere when the music in Ace Attorney is one of the biggest things in that series. A lot of people get into the series because of the music.
Well, let's just bring this part up. The music of Ace Attorney is so well known, even outside of the franchise, that freaking Undertale played it, and the moment I heard it, I knew exactly what video game they were referencing.
It's gotten to a point where, for example, Prince Crush comes, who only recently Ted managed to get Ryan and Johnny into the series. Even before they even played the series, they could recognize, oh, the dun 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 dun. That's Ace Attorney. Da 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 da. That's Ace Attorney. People who were outside of the franchise were able to recognize the themes.
Exactly.
And these themes were supposed to get you high. They were supposed to make you feel the despair, the hope, the tension, and I felt nothing. All I heard was noise.
Well, actually, if we're going to talk about atmosphere, can we also then go into how horrible the injections were? We don't even want to get started on that. Basically, okay. One of the key elements of the Ace Attorney franchise that's literally on the box of every single Ace Attorney game and is literally in the logo is the thing with Nick pointing. Like, that is the key element of the series. And here's the thing,
It's the icon of the series.
Yes, which I understand is why they tried to build it up so much. But you know what?
Build it up? I felt no build up for the fingers. Suddenly,
it felt like they were trying to build it up. They didn't build it up. That's the problem.
For some reason, when the point and that the whole thing I'm gonna bring up, when the point happens, suddenly whoosh! I'm airbender. I'm a windbender, airbender, whatever. Airbender.
You're gonna get hit for that.
But I'm tired, okay? I didn't sleep well, and I'm already having a fucking headache because of the show. That is not how it happens. Like, they try to make the pointing dramatic by making it not what it used to be. The pointer finger was Nick it was pretty much Nick dropping his mic for whatever point he make. And here it just felt like, oh, he's pointing at him and suddenly he can control wind.
Well,
okay.
yeah, it feels like he kind of blows up his wig just by pointing at him. I mean, it needs to be dramatic, but it's kind of going too far that I can't take it seriously.
Well, here's the thing with the pointing finger. I could understand if this was back in game, what was it, 2, 3, the one where Nick
Loses his memory?
Yeah.
That is in game 1. No, that's in game 2. But even then, in that game he did it because he felt suddenly, like, my body just reacted intentionally.
Well, here's what I was trying to bring up. My point is that it worked, like, the build up there, like, the reason why he didn't point that entire time until that very moment when he was like, this is natural to me, holy shit, I'm starting to remember, like, that's the drama that I think they were trying to go for, but they completely missed the mark on. because honestly, like, I could understand if, like, they were trying to get him to be more of a lawyer and, like, trying to build that up, but they absolutely did not. And even Mia,
she's a professional!
She's the one who, like, and she does point a lot, and she doesn't point, she just throws out her hands.
It might seem like a nitpick, guys. It really might seem like a nitpick.
But it's in the freaking logo!
When not just that, but also when you see the character pointing in these games, it's something that matters. Like, when you see them pointing, you know that what was just said was something important. Even Mia, in her rookie days in Ace Attorney 3, you saw her do the fucking point, and it was cool. In here, she just throws her hand like she's trying to do a magic spell on the witness.
And, well, here's my point. The thing is that it's, like, I can actually handle her doing that if it wasn't so important to the series, and if it wasn't something that, like, each individual character has their own goddamn point. Like, if you look at all of the characters, almost all of the characters have their own individual point, like finger pointing at their opponent, that is exclusively their point. Like, they each do it differently. Like, there is no 2 points are exactly the same. Like, some of them are similar.
Even though they're similar, like Apollo to Nick and Nick to me are similar, even then they're unique people. They feel like they belong to each character.
Exactly, which is why it's so important to the series, and I can understand if they were trying to build it up and make it like, okay, well, now you need to figure out what your own point is, Nick, but they didn't do that. It was just came out of nowhere, and yeah, they tried to build it up and make it dramatic, but it didn't feel dramatic, and it felt like just, like, I mean, I was glad that it finally showed up, because I was actually worried it wasn't going to show up, but they didn't do it that way.
If I can also say, for example,
I think we've successfully moved on into the characters now.
Yeah, speaking of adjusted story as well, something that happens, for example, Studio UFO Table, they were told during a lot of their works, show me the story not through their dialogues and exposition, but through the animation itself. Like, okay, they still did exposition, but there were a lot of moments where a lot of character motivations and character mentality was shown through their movements or their little touches. People will remember the final fight of UBW where a certain character hesitates, and that shows you a lot about the character. In here, they don't tell you stuff not because they're trying to show you stuff through the animation, but because they literally skip content or change content in a way that doesn't really make sense.
For example, like I was talking about how they didn't make you feel as though everything was coming down to the wire. It just felt like, okay, well, they assumed that he was guilty, and then Nick sat there and stated the facts, and then everything kind of went. But the thing is that in the game, what kept happening was Winston Payne was being a pain in the ass.
He was so bland here.
They cut out literally all of his good lines, everything that developed him as a character.
I never felt like he was cocky. I never felt like he was a cocky character.
No, he never said anything about Nick being a rookie. He never said anything about how he was
the Punisher of rookies or whatever.
Yeah, they never said about how he went undefeated. Like, they didn't develop his character
You have
at all.
Kenneth L. Malloy as his voice actor, and you fucking wasted him.
Exactly, but like, here's the point, is that with Winston Payne, he might be a minor character, but they did this with every character. Like, Mia didn't get a lot of screen time in the game.
And she got even less.
Here, yes, and I didn't feel any of the personality that I felt here. The one thing I will say that I'm glad that they improved with her character is that they gave her smaller breasts.
Yeah,
that was a good
Yeah,
thing.
her anatomy was improved slightly. I think her anatomy was only improved because the animation was that shitty.
You know what? I'll take it, honestly. At this point, I'll take it. And then the other thing is that they completely cut out the scene where Butts and Nick and Mia are all standing in the lobby and talking.
Before the trial.
And the important part, and here's the thing with Ace Attorney. They do explain a lot of stuff, but they also reinforce it by showing you what it is.
This is the thing that I brought up about the friendship, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is, in Ace Attorney, when you hear that Nick says, "This idiot is my friend," they then have a scene showing me that these idiots are friends.
Yes.
In this, they just say, "Oh, he's my friend. Let's move on to the case." and you just have to deal with this fucking idiot who you don't know, and you just have to assume, oh, they're friends.
Yes, but here's the other thing, is that they don't sit there and tell you and develop butts, which is actually a real shame too, because it's like, here's the thing, like in the lobby, he was sitting there and he's like going back and forth like, oh shit, I'm gonna die, they're gonna find me guilty. And then the next second he's like, yeah, I'm ready for the electric chair, put me in it, like all this stuff. And it's like, that shows you so much about a character. Miranda, did you get any of that sense from watching him?
Not really.
Exactly.
What do you feel? Like, what do you feel from these characters? Like, from an outsider looking in, what do you feel about the characters that you just watched?
What?
Yeah, like, what did you feel when watching them? Like, did you feel like when you remember?
What do you think the characters are like? Ignoring what we've told you about them, because they are beloved by us. I freaking cosplayed Gumshoe.
Gumshoe looks so bad.
Nick is the nickname for Naruhodo, right?
Yes, his name in Japan. What happens is that their name was translated into his name Naruhodo was translated into English as Phoenix, right? And because other characters cannot fucking pronounce their name, they just call him Nick.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, they can't pronounce Phoenix, but whatever. Except for Mia, of course.
Yeah.
Because Mia is a freaking badass.
A badass just because she can speak?
Well, no, just because she knows shit.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of neutral toward Nick. I don't know much about him. He kind of feels like your typical detective in anime. Because I was thinking of Detective Conan when I watched this. But he, what do I say? Sometimes I feel like his reaction is way too quick and it's not so unrealistic. I mean, it's animated, I can somehow understand it, but still, I feel like it's kind of rushed. I mean, I don't think he's a bad character though, but I just feel like they didn't do that well with him. For the other characters, well, how do I say? What's the name of the lady who's
Mia Fey.
Mia. I feel like she's pretty calm and cool, but it's still in the first episode. I didn't see much of her, but that's fine. And I'm not sure how I feel about the other characters. I mean, the witness is simply really funny. I can't take him seriously anyway. I feel like it's just that kind of. Yeah, let's go. Let's just go specific. Okay.
Yeah, but the thing is that just shows me that we already have all the values of all the games, so we know literally almost everything about these characters.
Yeah.
But even then, I remember the first time I played this case, I already loved these characters, and that just shows me how Miranda just saw these characters for the first time in this anime, and her reaction is, they're okay, instead of being like, oh, they're interesting.
Well, here's the thing.
Miranda just called Nick a stereotypical detective.
Like Detective Conan, and I have to tell you, I've seen Detective Conan. Nick is like the furthest thing from Detective Conan you can possibly get, and still be in the same realm of possibility.
Well, I mean, but like, I haven't seen much of Detective Conan either, but it's just like, Conan is kind of like the superstar in the show where he figured out everything quickly, and he can defend for the innocent, and usually whenever everyone else can figure out who actually committed the crime, and he could figure that out. So he gave me that Detective Conan feel.
Well, but here's the thing. From playing the first game, like, I only started watching Detective Conan recently, but even for, like, the first game, that was not my impression of Nick. Because because here's the thing with Nick. Nick doesn't figure shit out. He just guesses and gets lucky. That's how it is. He's not like Detective Conan who like sits there and figures everything out in his head. Nick just literally spews out bullshit and it turns out to be right. That's how he operates. And I very much did not get that sense at all from this show.
I felt with this show that he already had experience, but there were like a few silly things here, so we thought, oh, he's still a rookie. Wasn't enough. That definitely wasn't enough.
No. Like, I mean, like I said, Nick spits out bullshit and it turns out to be right. And that's how he operates. And that did not feel like the case here.
Well, because in this episode, he had pocket watching.
Exactly, and it's Nick. Literally, I believe there's
you mean he's not supposed to apply watching?
There is literally a line in one of the games, I forget which, where the judge basically...
This studio did Black Butler!
Are you kidding me?
What? Hold on.
Black Butler! I may have this!
No.
A1 Studios, the studio behind Black Butler, made this monstrosity.
I am not taking this because I am a fan of Black Butler.
They also did Saturday Night Online. They did Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic.
Oh, come on!
Please don't say that!
How do you come up with this then?
Okay, I feel like they used...
They did Noah Zero, Persona 4 Golden the Animation.
Oh,
okay,
jeez.
I feel like they
Your Live in April! They fucking did Your Live in April and they gave us this?
Oh my god.
Your eye April is really pretty. I feel like they used up their...
They did Working!
Okay, I feel like they used up their main budget on all that shows and used part of their pocket money.
They used not like most people will say when they think, for example, of Sonic Chronicles, the Dark Brotherhood, that BioWare used their C team. I do not feel that. I feel like they used their fucking Z for Zorro team. Their fucking bottom of the line. They literally told
I hope this was made by interns. I hope this was made by interns.
I think that was the case. I think they literally grabbed people that had just graduated from like college and tell them, okay, make an adaptation of this.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Just saying, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're gonna have like a big project like this, you need to have someone monitoring them at the very least. But like, come on, this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. But like, here's the take on. Here's the thing. Even from like the very first time that I met these characters.
You also did Fairy Tail, the studio.
Shush. We get the idea. Sorry. I
Sorry.
don't need to have my heart broken anymore. Stop looking.
Wait,
Stop
I'm looking for how many episodes the series is gonna be.
Okay, well here's the point. They did not get the spirit of the characters right, because honestly, even in the first game, I knew exactly who every single character was that I was introduced to the moment I was introduced to them. There was no way I could mistake any of the characters for each other. There was no way I could mistake any of them for anything, and like, they each had their own individual personalities and so forth, and this was even the Game Boy Advance version of it. And like, there is literally no excuse when the 2001 Game Boy Advance version of a game looks better than the anime version of that game. Like, there's no excuse. And like, honestly, like, it's very disappointing to see a game that is basically a cult classic all over just turned into this. And like, I'm happy that they got an anime, but I wish to God that
I kind of wish they hadn't gotten one, because it would be the introduction for a lot of people into the series.
Yeah,
and
actually you're right.
It's kind of like the same problem with Blaze Blue, Alter Memory. It rushes in so much that when people try and watch it, those who may care for it will retroactively hate it, and those whose first impression are horrible are gonna be like,
I don't want to watch.
Why do people like this series again? Why do they like these characters again? Now, oh shit, we'll be recording for like 30 minutes now, so
Alright.
I'm gonna cut it here. Now, one last thing that I want to say is, I don't know how many episodes are gonna be of this series, but from what I can tell, at the moment they only have one season planned. And based on some stuff that I've seen about a pachinko game showing cutscenes featuring Francisca Monkarma, I fear that they're gonna try and cram the first 3 games into one season.
Which is not gonna work.
Like, maybe, no, like, each game should be its own season. Like, maybe the first game is because it's shortest one, it could probably not be that long of a season, like maybe a 12 episode one, maybe a bit longer. but at the same time, you don't cram that much content. And if the opening little Easter egg of Apollo and Athena is to be believed, either they're gonna rush to try and add Apollo Justice and Dual Destinies into this season, into the same season, or gonna rush them and put them both into season 2 or whatever.
Which is not going to work in any way because they're both very, very different games. Like each of the games have their own character, have their own storyline,
Their own theme.
Exactly, and so there's not really a way that you can cram everything into a single season. Like,
So-
I'd understand if they had like a short 12 episodes and then to fill out the rest of the season, they started with the next season, or the next game. But like, this is the way they're going about it is not going to work. Okay, hang on. One last thing for those of you who have never played the game and who this is your first impression. Okay, the anime is basically if the game is Coca-Cola, the anime is watered down diet Coca-Cola. That's it.
Now, something I will do because I just want to promote the game. Don't use this anime as your only impression of the game or as your first impression of the game of the series. My opinion. Ignore this anime. Goes into a game. You can get it almost anywhere. iPhone, DS, 3DS, the Nintendo Wii shop. Get it however you can and just give it a shot. Because honestly,
if you liked it, play the game. If you didn't like it, play the game.
Like, yeah, sure, it's not gonna be for everyone, but at the same time, don't let this anime ruin your opinion on what is otherwise a great show. I mean, a great series.
Yes, a great franchise.
Definitely. So unfortunately, guys, I don't think it's looking good for this Attorney anime. I mean, they already lost me. Like, I'm only gonna watch it just to see if there's any chance of improving. Because A1, I mean, not like Sword Online, but I like some of the works that they've put out. And I know that A1 can do good. But if they don't prove to me, but if they ruin this series, they're gonna lose me.
Alright.
So, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you guys, if you guys enjoyed the series, tell me why. Write in the descriptions or reblog me what was your opinion of the show and why did you like it, or at least episode 1. If you didn't, and you share some of our opinions or you disliked it for different reasons, once again, tell me as well. So that's all I can say for now, and we'll bring you back more Runner's impressions, more Metal Gear, Xenoblade, and other games later as time goes on. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Thank you guys for recording with me. I'm RunnerGuitar.
I'm Alex.
I'm Miranda.
Keep on rocking, and I'll see you guys in hell.